You see it everywhere, on the news, across social media feeds, and in conversations at work or school, images of people arriving in small boats, risking everything for a new life in the UK. These scenes have become almost familiar, but behind every boat, every crossing, there are real people with real stories, hopes, and fears. The debate about migration is loud, passionate, and often divisive. Headlines shout, opinions clash, and social media scrolls by in a blur of arguments. But in all this noise, the facts, and the human stories, often get lost or drowned out. So instead of adding to the shouting, let's pause for a moment. Let's listen. Let's try to understand, with open minds and open hearts, why someone would make the unimaginable choice to leave everything behind. Their home, their friends, their language, their memories, and set out into the unknown. Imagine, just for a moment, packing a single bag with your most precious belongings, saying a tearful goodbye to the place you've always called home, and stepping into uncertainty. It's not a decision anyone makes lightly. For many, it's a last resort, a choice made in the face of war, persecution, or desperate poverty. It's about survival, about hope, and about the dream of safety and a future for their children. But why the UK? Why do people risk so much to come here specifically? Let's set aside the headlines and look at the real human stories behind the statistics. For some, it's about reuniting with family members already here. For others, it's the English language, a tool for building a new life. And for many, it's the UK's history of offering refuge, a reputation that still carries weight around the world. This isn't about taking sides or winning arguments. It's about seeking clarity, understanding the bigger picture, and finding common ground. When we look beyond the headlines, we see people, each with their own reasons, their own journeys, and their own dreams. In this chapter, we'll explore the main reasons people choose the UK, the language that opens doors, the family ties that pull them across borders, and the historical connections that shape their choices. We'll hear from those who have made the journey and from the communities that welcome them, but we can't ignore the risks. The journey is dangerous. Overcrowded boats, perilous crossings, and the ever-present threat of exploitation by smugglers. Many face hardship, fear, and uncertainty every step of the way. These are not just statistics, these are lives on the line. Our goal here is simple: understanding. By listening to real stories and looking at the facts, we can have a better, more empathetic conversation about migration, one that's rooted in compassion, not fear. Let's focus on facts, not fear. Let's challenge myths and misinformation and replace them with knowledge and empathy. When we understand the reasons behind these journeys, we can respond with humanity and wisdom. So let's talk honestly about why people risk everything for a chance to start over in the UK. Let's look at the courage it takes, the sacrifices made, and the hope that drives them forward. These are stories of resilience, determination, and the universal desire for a better life. It's a complicated story, full of challenges and difficult choices, but it's one worth understanding. Because behind every statistic is a person, and behind every journey is a story that deserves to be heard. And it all starts with the words we use, the questions we ask, and the willingness to listen. So let's begin, together. Let's get the language right, because when we talk about people moving across borders, the words we use really matter. They shape how we see the people behind the headlines and how we respond to their stories. You might have heard the terms asylum seeker, refugee, and migrant used interchangeably, but they actually mean very different things. Understanding these differences is key to having an informed conversation. An asylum seeker is someone who's left their home country behind, often in a hurry and under difficult circumstances, and is now asking another country for protection. They haven't been officially recognized as a refugee yet. They're waiting for a decision on their claim. These are people who say they'd face serious danger if they had to return home. That danger could come from war, violence, political beliefs, religion, ethnicity, or even their sexual orientation or gender identity. For many, staying would mean risking their lives or freedom. The United Kingdom, along with many other countries, is a signatory to the 1951 Refugee Convention. This international agreement was created after World War II, and it commits countries to protect people fleeing persecution and to give them a fair chance to explain their situation. So, when someone arrives in the UK and claims asylum, the government has a legal responsibility to listen to their case. This isn't just a matter of policy, it's a matter of law, both national and international. If the authorities decide that the person's fear is genuine and well-founded, they're granted refugee status. This means they can stay, rebuild their lives and start to feel safe again, often for the first time in years. But if their claim is rejected, if the government decides they wouldn't be at risk if they went back, they may be required to leave the country. This can be a devastating outcome, especially after a long and uncertain wait. The asylum process itself is often long, complicated, and emotionally draining. People can spend months, sometimes even years, waiting for a decision, living in limbo, and dealing with uncertainty about their future. You might have seen images of small boats crossing the English Channel. Most of the people making these dangerous journeys are not illegal immigrants. They're people seeking asylum, exercising their right to ask for protection. International law is clear. Anyone has the right to claim asylum, regardless of how they arrive in a country. There's no such thing as an illegal way to ask for safety. This is a crucial point that's often misunderstood or overlooked in public debates. The right to seek asylum is a fundamental human right, protected by international agreements. So when someone comes forward to ask for safety, they're not breaking the law. They're using a legal process that exists for a reason. They're hoping for a chance to live without fear. Understanding who asylum seekers are and what rights they have is the first step to having a fair and compassionate discussion about migration. It helps us move beyond stereotypes and see the real people behind the headlines. Why the UK? Safety is the biggest reason. People are fleeing war, persecution, and danger, seeking a stable, democratic country. The UK is seen as a place where the law is fair and people are protected. Language matters too. English is widely spoken and often taught abroad. Arriving somewhere you can communicate makes starting over less daunting. For many, knowing some English makes the UK a logical choice. It's not about an easy life, it's about survival and a chance to be understood. The ability to communicate is a lifeline for rebuilding after trauma. Family and community ties are powerful. Many asylum seekers have relatives or friends in the UK, offering comfort and support. Community networks help people cope, offering advice and a sense of belonging. The UK's history, its former empire, means many have long-standing connections here. People from countries like Pakistan, India, or Nigeria often feel a historical link to the UK. These ties make the UK more than just a random destination. Familiarity, family, and shared history are strong pull factors. They're often overlooked in the debate. Who's coming to the UK? When we hear about asylum seekers and refugees, it's easy to imagine a faceless crowd, but every person has a story, a reason, and a hope for a safer future. The faces you see at the border are not just statistics, they are individuals, each with a journey shaped by hardship and courage. The answer changes year to year, but most are escaping countries in crisis, places where daily life is marked by fear, violence, and uncertainty. Afghanistan, for example, has seen decades of conflict, forcing families to make impossible choices just to survive. Many come from Iran, Eritrea, Syria, and Sudan, nations where war, persecution, or political turmoil have made it unsafe to stay. These are not places people leave lightly. Leaving often means abandoning everything familiar. These aren't places people leave by choice. Imagine having to pack your life into a single bag, saying goodbye to your home, not knowing if you'll ever return. For many, the decision to flee is a last resort made under the shadow of danger. Tak Ahmed, for example, an Afghan interpreter who worked alongside the British Army, his service put him at risk, making him a target when the Taliban returned to power. After the Taliban's return, Ahmed faced death threats. Every day became a struggle to stay hidden, to protect his family, and to find a way out before it was too late. Or consider Sarah, an Iranian woman who bravely protested for women's rights. Her activism made her a target for persecution. Fleeing her homeland meant risking everything, but staying could have cost her freedom, or her life. Their journeys are dangerous, their choices desperate, and their hopes simple, to live in safety. The UK isn't chosen at random. For many, it's about safety, the chance to speak a familiar language, or the hope of reuniting with family already here. The UK represents a place where they can rebuild, learn, and contribute. Sometimes it's about a sense of connection, a relative, a friend, or simply the hope of belonging somewhere new. These ties can make all the difference in starting over. Official statistics show that most asylum claims in the UK come from people genuinely at risk, those who have fled real threats to their lives and freedom. The process is rigorous, designed to identify those most in need of protection. Grant rates for countries like Afghanistan and Syria are high, reflecting the dangers people face there. When their claims are approved, it's not just a legal decision, it's a lifeline. These aren't just numbers on a page, they're people with real fears, real dreams, and real families. Each statistic represents a life interrupted, a story of survival. The stories behind the stats matter. Most are seeking safety, not just opportunity. They come hoping for a chance to heal, to belong, and to build a future free from fear. In understanding their stories, we see the humanity behind the headlines. Why don't refugees just come legally? Because there's no legal way for most to do so. You can't apply for a UK visa to seek asylum from home. The system is built for tourists and business people, not refugees. That's why people turn to smugglers and dangerous boat crossings. These journeys are terrifying, but for many, it's the only option. Smugglers exploit desperation, charging thousands for a risky crossing. People know the dangers, but the risk at home is greater. The 1951 Refugee Convention recognizes that people fleeing for their lives may arrive without permission. Boat arrivals aren't breaking the rules, they're a sign of a broken system. A common myth is that asylum seekers come for benefits. The reality, while waiting for a decision, they can't work and get about £49 a week, barely enough to survive. Accommodation is basic and often shared, with little choice or stability. Life is uncertain, stressful, and impoverished. Studies show benefits aren't a factor in choosing the UK. Asylum seekers talk about safety, family, and language, not welfare. Many don't know what support they'll get until they arrive. The UK's support is not the most generous in Europe. Countries like France and Germany offer similar or more. The real pull is safety and human connection, not benefits. Headlines suggest the UK is overwhelmed, but the numbers tell a different story. The UK receives fewer asylum applications than Germany, France, Spain, or Italy. Per head of population, the UK is even further down the list. Most refugees aren't in the UK or Europe. 75% are in countries like Turkey, Jordan, and Lebanon. These countries host millions, often with fewer resources. The UK's share is a small fraction of the global total. Understanding this context is vital. It challenges the idea that the UK is bearing the brunt. We're part of a much bigger picture. We've covered the facts, the journeys, and the reasons people come. The issue is complex, rooted in history, language, family, and the search for safety. It's not about benefits or an easy life. The conversation can be divisive, but it doesn't have to be. Behind every statistic is a person with hopes and fears. We need a fair, efficient, and humane system, grounded in facts, not fear. Compassion matters. Imagine yourself in their shoes. Listening to all sides is key. How we treat the most vulnerable defines us as a country. Understanding the real reasons people come helps us have a better, more empathetic conversation.